Now we're very excited to welcome one of our newest partners. And I don't know how much you know about these, I'll be honest with you, that until we started our correspondence and our communication, I hadn't really heard of them. They're called Sat7 UK. And joining me here is Martin. Now, Martin Thomas is the Senior Director for the organisation. Hi there, Martin. And first of all, a massive thank you for joining us here at Konnect Radio.
Well, thanks for the welcome, Gareth. It's great to be joining you on this slightly wintry morning.
Now, of course, you do media and we do media as well. But
Absolutely.
As I said, Sat7 may not be a name that many people have heard of, but you do a lot of work, in fact, the majority of your work in the Middle East. So tell us about the mission and the vision.
Absolutely. Great opportunity to be able to share with you today. Well, yeah, Sat7 UK is part of a network of media organisations that really bring joy, Gareth. Simply put, bringing joy to the people of the Middle East and North Africa. But I think when your listeners hear those words, maybe Middle East, perhaps they'd be forgiven for thinking more immediately about the issues like poverty and conflict, things they see on the news, persecution even, and crisis. And we'd say, yeah, that's partly true, but Sat7's made a conscious decision to actually take a bit of a stand against the headlines, the negativity, the despair. So we choose perhaps a different path. We want to tell a different story. And that's really the purpose behind Sat7, is to be in the region, to tell stories of joy being found, love and care and comfort being shown, and faith being strengthened right across the region. And as you just said, a little bit like Konnect, not through radio, but Sat7 does that through powerful, faith-filled satellite television and digital media programs. And we cover a lot of issues across the different programs, but the main vision really is to make God's love visible, and to bring the joy of the good news straight into the heart of the family home.
And sadly, you mentioned two words there, joy and happiness. And in the Middle East and North Africa, in the news, we don't seem to hear that there's much joy going on there. And in fact, It just seems to be so sad what's going on there at the moment. And there's so many, this year in particular, there seems to be so much going on. So just tell us, how difficult is it for Sat7 to respond to what's going on over there?
It's tough, to be honest. It has been a really eventful year right across the MENA region. It does feel like there's been crisis after crisis, natural disasters, conflicts. Sat7 broadcasts on 4 channels in several languages of the region. So Arabic, Turkish, Farsi and Dari. Those are the languages of Iran and Afghanistan. Cast your mind back to the 6th of February, a huge 7.8 magnitude earthquake that struck Turkey and Syria, killing over 55,000 people, injuring hundreds of thousands. Now, our Turkish channel was there on the scene soon after the earthquake, reporting how the church was stepping up to care for the devastated communities, providing comfort and support. But then in April, you see a conflict breaking out in the Sudanese capital of Khartoum. And we filmed a whole series of the stories of refugees that came from Sudan to Egypt, a project called Refugee Tales. Then again in September, we had another huge earthquake that struck Morocco, affecting Marrakesh. 3,000 people were killed, many people left with nothing. And in fact, it was our Turkish channel and viewers and supporters that were some of the first to respond, because they'd not that long before been through that issue themselves. And then your listeners might have heard in Libya, there's a big flood just a few days later from the earthquake. That struck Libya, Storm Daniel, tsunami-like floods. It kind of wrecked a whole town, a whole region. Well, we got a program called You Are Not Alone. And that team were actually on a production break. They were having a holiday. But when that hit, they decided to come back. They recorded a special episode to broadcast prayers and comfort for both those countries, and to offer support to our viewers. Then you move to September, Gareth, and that was the anniversary of the death of an Iranian student. That's been on the news a lot across mainstream media. The death of a student called Masa Amini. She was killed in police custody for allegedly wearing the headscarf improperly. Her death sparked protests across Iran. It's involved into a broader movement for women's rights and reform. And sadly, several hundred people have been killed, government crackdowns, people arrested. And during that time, our Persian channel, mentioned a Farsi speaking channel, they've been airing content specifically for women who particularly need encouragement, empowerment. And then more recently, 7th of October, an infamous date now, you could say, Hamas launched violent attacks, Israeli communities along the Gaza border. And as we know, in response, Israeli government launched an intensive bombardment and ground invasion. There's better news more recently, as we know, but during this difficult time, our Arabic channel has been particularly giving a voice to the local church and responding to people across the Holy Land who message our channels seeking support. Well, you might not know that actually on the same day as the Hamas attacks, there were 4 large earthquakes again in Afghanistan that killed many and left many wounded. And I think it barely registered on our news headlines. And that's just added pain in Afghanistan after the Taliban kind of retake over in 2021. It's been brutally hard life for the people, particularly Christians, women and minorities. So we've been trying to increase our support for the Afghan community during this really, really difficult time. So yes, it's been hard. And that's just a brief roundup of some of the biggest crises that have hit the region this year. And if your listeners want to know more, we do produce kind of in-depth insight briefings each month that they would be able to get from us.
It must be hard because your broadcasters and your journalists, they'll have to find glimmers of hope through these difficult situations. And as a broadcaster myself, it can be very, very hard that when you know that there's such trauma and just things happening, that you have to almost bring a bit of hope to the viewers. How do you manage that?
I think that's because we have a faith, and we have a faith in a God who brings good news and brings hope and peace and joy in the midst of that pain. And to give an example, in Turkey, where the earthquake hit, many of our staff in the studio in Istanbul, but many of them had family in the place where the earthquake had hit. So they were responding professionally by being doing the media programs to offer comfort to the viewers in Turkey and wider region. But at the same time, they were having to personally work through the issues of losing loved ones and family members and friends in the region too. So that's something that I know we're going to talk about praying at the end and how can we pray. But that's where it gets hard when they're broadcasting the programs for our viewers, but it's also impacting them personally too.
And here in the UK, we never have to wonder if we're allowed to celebrate Christmas. You know, you would never be arrested, for example, singing a Christmas carol. But the headline of your Christmas campaign is Silent Night, and it focuses on the fact that many Christians across the Middle East are silenced and can't celebrate the birth of Jesus freely. So as we head into Advent, it's an exciting time for many people. Just tell us about your campaign and how we can get involved.
Yeah, thanks, Gareth. Well, it's also a priority for us, as well as doing all the programs as I've been sharing about in the Middle East. Priority to help people here in the UK, Republic of Ireland, to have, frankly, a deepened understanding of the challenges faced by Christians and the people of the MENA region, Middle East and North Africa. And I've got here, if you're watching the video, you can see I'm holding up our little Advent Silent Night booklet. And we've created a resource to really help you understand. I'm just going to read from the words Silent Night, Holy Night, all is calm, all is bright. Well, the words I've just been talking to you about the crisis, well, all is not calm, frankly. All is not bright sometimes for the people in the region. Those words are so familiar to us, and yet we don't, as we sing Silent Night, think about actually what it might feel like for our faith to be silenced, so that we couldn't sing those carols, we couldn't walk down a street and share openly about our faith and about the joy of Jesus coming into the world. So that's a little bit of a summary of what we want to do in this Advent season. It says we're going to focus on the voices of believers across the Middle East and North Africa. Many of these countries are silenced by society, religious leaders, and officials, sometimes by their own families. And it's just a resource packed full of information and education and inspiration to help you pray, to help you understand the situation, and to respond and get involved. We've got country profiles, prayer topics, we've got featured articles, and Bible studies for personal use and also for groups in churches. So it's packed full, and you can get involved in those things, but you can order your prayer guide. But you could also, if you like singing, Gareth, I don't know if you like singing.
Not publicly.
Not publicly. Okay, well, maybe you could.
Only in the
This
bath,
is
maybe in the shower.
Absolutely. Definitely. Well, if you have a small group, a little choir, home group, you could get involved in what we call the Silent Night Christmas Challenge. Last year, we recorded the carol in English, French, Arabic, Farsi, and Turkish. And we're challenging just groups, individuals, to record their own version. We've got all the resources. You can download that from the website, and you too can help raise the profile of Christians in the Middle East who sometimes are silenced for their faith, and share that more broadly in the UK at this time.
So give us the website address that our listeners and viewers can go to actually read more about this, because we've got quite a few keen singers who listen to this. In fact, we've got quite a few choir leaders as well. So I know that they'll be clutching on to your every word when you mention this.
That's great. And we actually have the kind of tracks that they can use to help their choir or whatever to do that, and the music and the words as well. So yeah, there's a couple of links. If you were to want to download and sign up for the Advent resources and the Silent Night Christmas Challenge, that's sat7uk.org/Advent, simply put, and hopefully that'll be on Konnect socials as well. Also, if you do feel moved to give at this time, actually, a donation of £14, that actually provides 1 hour of vital follow-up support for our viewers who call and contact us. And if you want to know about that, then it's just the same website, sat7uk.org/Christmas.
And of course, as Christians, we believe that prayer is so very important. It's such a powerful tool, isn't it? Because it can move mountains. It can break through walls.
Absolutely.
So we want to ask what our listeners, our brothers and sisters who are listening to this right now, can be praying for within Sat7.
Gareth, thank you. That's so important to us. Sat7, we do produce a lot of resources to help people pray and engage. I mentioned the crisis situations. The vast majority of Sat7 staff are from the region and live in the region, countries like Turkey, Egypt, Lebanon, Cyprus. So my first real prayer point is please pray for them. They don't just run our studios and make our programs, but as I said before, they have to respond personally to the challenging situations, fast-changing situations on the ground. I think secondly, I have to say, please pray that God's love, peace, justice will reign in the Holy Land this time. There's a lot of suffering, a lot of people grieving right across the region. Please pray for wisdom and discernment, particularly for our teams as they communicate sensitively and faithfully about the situation to our viewers. I think thirdly, please pray for the staff, I just said, who answer the phones, the people who respond to emails and questions that come in. People are asking a lot of questions at the moment on social media and messages. They have a lot of prayer needs, so we pray for them and answer them. They have questions of faith. We had this little young lad from Syria when the earthquake hit. I think his name was Sammy. And yeah, I've got this quote. He said, "I pray no more earthquakes happen. We were afraid of another earthquake, but we were very joyful that you check on us. You were true friends." So do pray for those who are responding. And I think the last one is a prayer request, but also a giving thanks. It's a time of Advent, of waiting, anticipation. But it's also a time of giving thanks. I just want to give thanks and for your listeners, engaging with you guys at Konnect. But please, could you give thanks that Sat7 has this amazing opportunity to give a voice to the church in a really challenging region at a time of hardship. Give thanks that we can proclaim the message of peace, unity, right across the region. I hope, I'm sure that's a prayer that your listeners could get behind. And I think we need more messages of unity and peace more than ever at this time.